The 42nd floor of Reeves Enterprises glowed brighter than any building in the city. White lights spilled across glass walls, reflecting down onto the downtown streets like a lighthouse of power. Inside the oval boardroom, a 12-meter walnut table shone like a mirror, throwing back the strained faces of 20 executives in gray suits. Victor Reeves, 50, tech billionaire and the embodiment of American self-made confidence, stood at the head of the table. In his hand, a thick document covered in Chinese characters. He raised it like a flag and said coldly, "Whoever can translate this accurately in 48 hours will earn my daily salary, $27,400. Silence, then laughter, sharp, sycophantic, merciless. Derek Willis, VP of Operations, twisted his Harvard ring and muttered just loud enough, "Maybe we should call Google Translate, probably more accurate than our own team." Laughter grew louder. Reeves smirked, nudging a janitor's cart aside with his Italian shoe. Lucia Vega, the young cleaning woman, kept wiping the table, circular motions steady, invisible as always. In her pocket, a jade pen trembled faintly, as if recognizing its moment. She could read every word in that document. Mandarin, her mother's language. The language she had promised never to reveal. Reeves faced the glass wall. His voice struck like metal. "This proposal comes from Hang Tech Innovations in Shanghai. A billion-dollar opportunity, but the entire file is in Chinese and our translation team is overseas. If no one here can read it, this company could lose everything." The room cooled instantly. Willis joked, "Maybe the cleaning lady can help. She might know Chinese." More laughter. Lucia said nothing. Her fingers tightened around the pen, tracing the carved characters. Zi Shi Ji Ming. Knowledge illuminates. Outside, city lights flickered gold. In the reflection, she saw her own blurred face. Small, ghost-like. No one knew she'd once been a trilingual prodigy. No one remembered her father, Rafael Vega, the engineer who built Reeves's Asian market strategy before being strategically restructured. She remembered that night, her father's hollow eyes, his broken whisper. "They said I carried the company's secrets, but the truth is they just wanted someone cheaper." 3 months later, he was gone. Insurance revoked. Medical bills higher than the stacks of technical papers he left behind. Her mother, a Beijing University graduate, mopped the same halls he once walked in a suit. Lucia quit school, took 2 jobs, and never looked up again. Now she was polishing the same table where her father had presented his last project. And the man who had destroyed his career stood a few feet away, waving a contract she could read like a newspaper. Outside, sirens wailed faintly. Inside, laughter died. Reeves snapped the folder shut, his eyes sweeping the room. "If no one can do it, I'll outsource. But one leak, one line, and you'll lose more than your job." Lucia pushed her cart toward the door. The soft click of glass closing behind her sounded like a bell. In the empty hallway, she stopped. Her phone buzzed. Final notice, payment due in 72 hours before eviction. 72 hours. The same deadline as the contract. 2 lives, 1 clock. She slid the pen back into her pocket, stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, reflecting eyes no longer tired but fierce. A countdown ticked beneath the quiet score as the narrator's voice rose. It began as a joke, but within 3 days the invisible cleaning woman would rewrite the fate of a billion-dollar empire and expose a truth that would shake the global chip industry. Night settled over the city like a thick velvet curtain. The 42nd floor was dark, only corridor lights blinking faintly across the marble tiles. Lucia pushed her cleaning cart out of the elevator, her breath tasting of cold metal and fear. Reeves's voice still echoed in her head. 48 hours, $27,400. She walked past the glass partitions, eyes fixed on the massive boardroom where the chairs sat in perfect order, the projector off, and the thick folder lying in the center of the table, like an unexploded bomb. The ticking of the wall clock seemed louder here, each beat a countdown. Lucia inhaled slowly. If this was her only chance, she would take it. She entered the room, parked the cart by the door, and switched on the lights. White brightness flooded the space, glinting off the title printed on the cover. Hang Tech Innovations. Proposal GX500 Manufacturing Partnership. She sat at the far end, her hands trembling as she flipped the first page. The Chinese characters ran like rivers, intricate and precise. But to Lucia, they were alive. Her father's voice whispering from memory, "Don't just translate words, translate intent. Between lines, there's always a message." She pulled the jade pen from her bag. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the air. Under the sterile light, the pen shimmered softly. Lucia opened her notebook and began to write. The opening paragraph read, "The GX500 project aims for a closed supply chain, secure design ownership, and reduced human resource costs." Lucia froze on that last phrase. In the coded language of Chinese commerce, reduced human resource costs often meant mass layoffs. Her stomach tightened. She thought of the factory workers her mother once spoke of, dismissed overnight when a joint venture collapsed. The clock showed 11:47 p.m. Lucia translated swiftly, underlining risky sections, snapping photos with her phone, saving the file under a secret name. Night Owl Notes, DocX. Then, a soft ding. The elevator doors slid open. She killed the lights, pressed herself against the glass wall. Footsteps. Willis entered. He switched on a desk lamp, opened his laptop. Lucia peered through the gap, pulse racing. He wasn't translating. He was editing. She watched him replace the line, "Strict quality inspection required," with "Flexible inspection accepted." One keystroke could cost millions if discovered. When he left, Lucia approached the computer. The screen still glowed. Save changes? She clicked cancel and took photos of every line. At 1:13 a.m., she picked up her pen and wrote in neat blue ink on the whiteboard corner. Check Clause 14, translation error, exclusive rights, shared rights. She signed it, Night Owl. The clock read 1:30 as she stepped out. The city outside was drowned in fog. Inside her chest, a small flame flickered to life. On the night bus home, lights flashed across the window, reflecting her face like a ghost trapped between worlds. "Dad," she whispered, "I won't let them bury your work again." Back at the small apartment, her mother slept, surrounded by stacked medical bills. Lucia powered up her old laptop, put on her headphones, and resumed translating. Rain began to fall outside, soft and steady, the rhythm of time itself. 72 hours, now only 60, and the night owl had awakened. Saturday morning, the 42nd floor gleamed like a mirror. Sunlight sliced through the glass, turning the boardroom into a white-hot chamber. Lucia pushed her cleaning cart out of the elevator, head down, eyes alert. On the whiteboard, the note she'd written last night was still there. Check Clause 14, translation error. Below it, a new scrawl appeared. D. Willis. He'd signed her work. Lucia clenched her jaw and kept wiping. Reeves emerged from his office, crisp shirt, red tie, expression unreadable. "Meeting at 10, he said. "Bring the latest translation." Lucia's pulse jumped. The latest translation was the one Willis had doctored, the one she knew could sink the company. It was 9:20, 40 minutes left. She slipped downstairs to the internal print room. The hum of printers filled the air. Stacks of papers rolled off the machines. One cover page caught her eye. GX500 translation, version 2.0, prepared by D. Willis. She glanced sideways, pushing her cart past the table. Page 16, workforce optimization, had been replaced by collaborative efficiency improvements. A single phrase transforming mass layoffs into team synergy. Lucia quietly snapped photos and left. At 10, she was outside the glass-walled boardroom, polishing while listening. Reeves sat at the head. Executives spread their copies before them. Willis spoke with oily confidence. As you can see, HangTech proposes exclusive collaboration, cost reduction, and workforce optimization. This is our golden ticket to dominate the Asian market. Reeves nodded, satisfied. Lucia's pulse hammered. She wanted to shout that the clause was a trap, but doing so would mean immediate termination. Reeves asked, "How reliable is this translation?" Willis smiled. "Double-checked with software and a secondary translator. Perfect consistency." Lucia's fists tightened. Software, she thought. He'd run it through a machine, erasing all context, all legal nuance. The meeting dragged for 2 hours. When it ended, Reeves said, Keep this confidential. We'll send our preliminary response Monday. No leaks. Lucia entered to clean once the room emptied. Coffee cups, scattered notes, and a small silver USB. She glanced around. No one. The metal glinted with engraved letters, H-Tech drafts. She slipped it into her pocket. That afternoon, at home, Lucia plugged the USB into her old laptop. Folders unfolded, dozens of draft files. In one, red highlights marked Willis's edits. Replace mandatory with suggested, reduces legal liability. Remove workforce reporting clause. Simplify QA section, avoid detailed compliance. Lucia leaned back, the weight of it all pressing down. If this contract were signed, Reeves Enterprises would violate international labor and technical transparency laws. But exposing it could mean prosecution for data breach. Her phone buzzed, housing court notification. The voice on the line was dry. Ms. Vega, your eviction file will be processed Monday. Locks will be changed. She hung up, trembling. The jade pen on the desk shimmered green. 24 hours left. Silence or justice. Both carried destruction. Outside, clouds thickened. A single raindrop slid down the window, like time itself running out. Lucia whispered, "They won't laugh at me again." She opened her laptop, drafted an anonymous email to Reeves's address. Subject line, "Check the original Chinese text. Clause 14 is a trap." She signed it simply, Night Owl. Sunday morning opened with rain drumming against the old apartment window. Lucia hadn't slept. She sat before the screen, eyes red, staring at her inbox. The email she'd sent at 2 a.m., Clause 14 is a trap, had no reply. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Min Vega showing low blood pressure. Admission required. She grabbed her coat, packed clothes, and rushed her mother through the rain to emergency care. By the time she returned, it was almost 10. A new email waited. "We know who you are, Night Owl." Her stomach dropped. Only one person could have sent that. Willis. That afternoon, the 42nd floor glowed again. An emergency meeting. Lucia pushed her cart down the hall, heart pounding. Reeves's voice carried from inside the conference room. "We've had a leak. Someone sent an anonymous message claiming translation errors." Lucia froze behind the wall. Willis's tone was calm, measured. "I checked the logs. Only internal users had access. Could be a janitor or a tech. We should audit all access cards." Reeves snapped. "Do it. I want to know who's interfering with a billion-dollar deal." Lucia exhaled slowly. They would trace her soon. She went to the supply room, pulled out her phone, deleted every copy of Night Owl notes, backed it up on a micro SD, and hid it in her shoe. At 11, Willis appeared in the corridor, coffee in hand. "Working Sundays, huh?" "Just cleaning," she said quietly. He smiled thinly. "Good, keep things spotless. Someone's looking for dirt." The words froze her blood. By noon, Willis left his office. Lucia slipped into the boardroom, searching the document pile. There, the original Chinese contract mixed among copies. She took quick photos. The door creaked. "Curiosity can be dangerous," a voice said. She turned. Willis stood at the doorway, the cup in his hand, steaming. "Interested in Mandarin, or are you helping someone else translate?" Lucia stayed silent. He walked closer. "You're Rafael Vega's daughter, aren't you? A loyal man, your father. Pity loyalty doesn't pay." She met his eyes. "And you steal credit from those who still believe in work." He chuckled. "In this world, credit means nothing without power. Reeves knows that. You don't." He held out his hand. "Give me your phone." "No. I could tell Reeves you accessed restricted data. Or forget the whole thing, if you hand over your translation." Lucia's voice was steady. "You want me silent so you can keep lying to everyone." "Lie's a heavy word," he said softly. "Let's call it rewriting history." Her breath caught. "Then I'll be the one to write it right." Willis smiled faintly. "Truth doesn't pay the rent, Vega. By Monday, when this deal goes through, your truth will vanish along with your job." He left, the smell of burnt coffee trailing behind. Lucia stood still, heart hammering. She had crossed the line. There was no going back. That evening, she sat by her mother's hospital bed, fingers wrapped around the frail hand. "Mom, if anything happens, don't worry. I'll be fine." Her mother smiled weakly. "You've always been stronger than you think." Outside, the city glowed in the purple dusk. Lucia stopped on the pedestrian bridge, watching the skyline shimmer. Inside her, fear hardened into resolve. Tomorrow she would stop hiding. Sunday night was heavy as lead. The 42nd floor was dark, save for a guard light blinking in the hallway. In her small apartment, Lucia sat before her laptop, the blue glow reflecting in her weary eyes. On the desk lay printouts of the Chinese contract, dense characters, technical notes, hidden traps. Beside them, a court notice. Eviction enforcement, 9 o'clock a.m., Monday. 10:17 p.m., less than 10 hours left. Outside, the city pulsed with light, oblivious to those about to lose everything. Lucia opened a blank file, typing fast. Fear had turned into something colder, a razor edge of clarity. Clause 14. Workforce optimization and management flexibility. The phrase that poisoned the deal. Lucia retranslated it. Mandatory layoffs and labor redistribution per partner's demand. No sugarcoating, just truth. Wind moaned through the window cracks. On the screen, words streamed with her heartbeat. She reopened the stolen USB, reading Willis's deleted notes. Reeves won't lose this deal over a few damned words. He'll lose much more, she whispered. The phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Vega? Who is this? Reeves Security, you're required at headquarters tomorrow at 7 a.m. to discuss the leak. I'm just cleaning staff. We know. You have access to the 42nd floor, don't you? She hesitated. Yes. Good. Don't go anywhere and don't delete anything. Click. Silence. They were closing in. Lucia stared out the window. Far away, the Reeves Tower still glowed. The upper floors alive where Reeves and Willis were likely reviewing the final draft before sending it to Shanghai. She thought of her father, of the nights he guided her hand over Chinese characters, saying, "Language is responsibility. Whoever holds the pen defines truth." Lucia lifted the jade pen. Its green shimmer pulsed softly. She opened a new file, titled it Translation Final L. Vega Duos X. Inside, she placed her accurate translation, legal notes, and a comparison table, her work beside Willis's edits. At the bottom, one line. If I disappear, forward this to HangTech. They'll understand. She uploaded the file to a cloud drive with an auto-send trigger. If she failed to log in within 24 hours, it would be sent to HangTech and a major financial newspaper. 1 a.m. Lucia zipped her coat and left. Before closing the door, she looked toward the hospital window in the distance, glowing white. I'll finish this, Mom. On the night bus, the city blurred past. Neon, empty diners, nameless souls. She gripped the jade pen tight. 3 a.m. She stood before Reeves Enterprises. The glass facade mirrored her small, steady figure. She scanned her badge. Beep. The lock clicked open. The 42nd floor was lit. She headed straight for the boardroom. Empty. On the table, Willis's laptop glowed, screen open. Draft response to HangTech. Pending CEO approval. She sat, added a final note in Mandarin. The contract is valid only under humanitarian and technical compliance. Any alteration to evade these duties constitutes ethical violation. Save. Footsteps echoed. She turned. Willis stood there, face flushed, breathing fast. I knew you'd come. Lucia rose. I'm just doing what my father did, telling the truth. You just signed your own termination, he sneered. Maybe. But I also just saved this company from a federal investigation. Reeves won't believe you. You're just the janitor. You'll be surprised. The elevator chimed. Reeves stepped out with 2 security officers. What's going on here? Willis pounced. She broke in. She's the leak. Lucia laid the jade pen on the table. Her voice was calm. If I'm lying, read the real contract with your own eyes instead of his words. Reeves looked from her to Willis. I'm listening. Lucia projected both versions, hers and Willis's. This is what you're sending to Shanghai tomorrow, and this is what HangTech actually wrote. Silence. Reeves's eyes narrowed. Willis's face drained of color. If you sign, Lucia said, you'll fire 300 workers, violate 3 labor accords, and invite a Commerce Department probe. Or you can sign the true version and keep the deal ethically. Reeves's tone was low. Proof? Lucia held up a micro SD. System logs. Willis edited the file at 11:42 p.m. last night. Willis shouted, She's lying! Lucia replied, I translate. You distort. Reeves gestured to security. Escort Mr. Willis to the compliance office. I'll verify this myself. The door closed. Only Lucia and Reeves remained. He sat, studying her. You did all this for the bonus? Lucia shook her head. For my father's name, and for everyone who cleans up the mess left by men like you. Reeves sighed, gaze softening. Be here at 9. You'll join the hang tech call. Lucia nodded. She picked up her pen and stepped into the hallway. Outside, dawn cracked the horizon, spilling light across the glass tower. Monday, 0 hour. Monday morning flooded the 42nd floor with golden light. The place buzzed with tension. Assistants hurried. IT staff tested the video feed. On the big screen, the crimson logo of HangTech Innovations flickered, waiting. Lucia entered, gripping her jade pen. She wore a crisp white shirt, slightly worn but spotless. Eyes turned toward her. Curious, skeptical, some dismissive. Reeves stood near the window, straight-backed. He nodded. Sit. She obeyed, sitting at the far end, facing the screen. Her heart pounded. The connection tone chimed. The image from Shanghai appeared. HangTech's boardroom bright and sleek. Lin Hang, the CEO, sat at the center. Beside him, Mr. Zhang, her father's former colleague. Mr. Reeves, good morning, Lin said smoothly. We appreciate your punctuality. Shall we proceed? Reeves smiled confidently. Of course. Let's finalize this partnership. But Lin's eyes drifted to the woman behind him. And who is the young lady? Reeves hesitated. Lucia stood. Lucia Vega, sir. Zhang smiled faintly. Raphael's daughter? Yes, Mr. Zhang. The air changed. Reeves stiffened. Lin switched to Mandarin. Interesting. We received a final translation at 3 a.m. Complete, annotated with ethical notes. Reeves frowned. We haven't sent any version yet. Lin's English cut sharp. Strange. It came from your company domain, authored by L. Vega. Lucia met his gaze. That was me. The version you have is the accurate one. The one HangTech actually wrote. Silence. Reeves turned, voice cold. You sent an unauthorized document? Lucia answered calmly. I sent the truth. If you had sent the old version, your company would be in violation of international labor law and lose all credibility. Gasps. A pen dropped. Lin nodded slowly. She's right. Clause 14 was intentionally ambiguous to test integrity. We knew Mr. Willis's version had been altered. Reeves's jaw tightened. Zhang added softly in Mandarin. Raphael Vega once said, a company that loses ethics loses its future. Seems his daughter remembers. Lucia's throat tightened. For a moment, she could almost feel her father standing there. Lin continued. We're ready to sign under one condition. Lucia Vega will serve as cultural and linguistic liaison. Otherwise, no deal. Reeves turned to her, eyes conflicted. Anger mixed with calculation. He was cornered, and he knew it. Miss Vega, he said slowly, do you understand what you're committing to? Lucia nodded. Better than anyone, and I'll stand by every word I translated. Lin smiled. Then we have an agreement. Signatures appeared on both screens. Cameras clicked. The deal was sealed. Reeves approached her. You just made me sign a contract on your terms. Lucia smiled softly. Not terms, sir. Fairness. He studied her. I don't like being forced, but I respect those who take responsibility. Draft her employment contract. Director of Global Cultural Relations. The room fell silent. Lucia's hands trembled slightly. In that instant, she knew. She was no longer invisible. The meeting ended. Lucia stood by the window, sunlight pouring across the jade pen in her hand. Behind her, Reeves said quietly, Miss Vega, I suppose you just taught me something about language. Lucia turned, eyes calm. Not language, sir. Trust. Light flooded the room. For the first time in years, Lucia Vega lifted her gaze toward the sky beyond the 42nd floor. Where once she only saw reflections of power, now she saw herself. 2 weeks later, Reeves Enterprises blazed across every headline. Janitor saves billion-dollar deal, read the Wall Street Journal. Invisible translator turns corporate savior, echoed Business Insider. Inside the company, whispers turned to applause. The same people who once ignored Lucia now stopped to greet her, some asking for photos. She didn't quite know how to react. She had never wanted fame, only fairness. Her new office sat beside the regional directors. On the glass door, the words gleamed. Lucia Vega, Director of Global Cultural Relations. She placed her jade pen inside a crystal holder. Sunlight scattered green light across the desk. The skyline stretched behind her. The same city where she once worked in shadows, now reflecting her light. A knock. Her assistant entered with a stack of papers. "Miss Vega, the press wants an interview. Mr. Reeves suggested you talk about language and ethics in global business." Lucia smiled. "Tell them I'll talk about people, not just ethics." After the assistant left, Lucia opened her inbox. An email from Reeves. "Miss Vega, the press loves this human values angle. I still don't like how you did it, but results speak louder." "Reeves?" Lucia chuckled softly. A reluctant compliment, but honest. She scrolled through a list of workers once marked for layoffs. Next to each name, she typed, "Retained, to join retraining program with Hang Tech." At lunch, she went to the company cafeteria. The cleaning staff froze when she entered. One young woman grinned shyly. "Miss Lucia, you're the boss now, right?" Lucia shook her head. "No, I'm just Lucia. I just want everyone to be seen." An older guard stood, extending his hand. "You make us proud, miss." She squeezed his hand gently. "We all deserve to be seen." That afternoon, Reeves called her to his office, the same room she used to scrub in silence. Now she walked in as an equal. Reeves stood by the window, watching the skyline. "You know," he said, "I used to think people like you should stay in their lanes, mop floors, not meddle in billion-dollar deals." Lucia stayed quiet. "But you proved me wrong," Reeves continued. "Hang Tech wants you to head the partnership division. If you agree, you'll have full authority. Salary tripled. Your own team." Lucia nodded slowly. "I accept, on one condition." "Condition?" "We create the Rafael Vega Scholarship for employees' children with technical or linguistic talent, and a hidden talents program to uncover skills among all staff." Reeves smirked. "Turning my company into a school?" Lucia smiled. "Turning it into a place where people matter." He laughed quietly. "I don't believe in ideals. I believe in numbers." Lucia met his gaze. "Then let me prove compassion pays dividends." He studied her, then nodded. "You sound like your father." He said the same thing. When Lucia left his office, the hallway shimmered with golden sunset. She passed young employees chatting about the news. One whispered, "If she could do it, maybe I can too." Lucia smiled to herself. That night, she visited her mother at the hospital. Min Vega was sitting upright, color returning to her face. "I saw the papers," her mother said, eyes shining. "Your father would be proud." Lucia took her hand. "It wasn't just me, Mom, it was us." She took out the jade pen, placing it gently in her mother's palm. "It's not a lucky charm anymore. It's proof that words can change the world." Her mother laughed softly, tears glistening. Outside, the city lights bloomed against the night sky. A new chapter had begun. 3 weeks after the historic meeting, Lucia Vega had become a global phenomenon. From CNN and BBC to Asian news outlets, her story dominated headlines. The janitor who saved $1 billion deal. Hashtag the translator. Who Fought Back spread across social media. She was hailed as the woman who spoke truth to power. Students, workers, and translators around the world wrote letters of admiration. A Chinese newspaper called her the linguistic envoy, the woman who turned tragedy into a bridge. But where there is light, darkness follows. The brighter her fame, the more Lucia realized, the media doesn't just tell stories, it reshapes them. Tabloids ran headlines like romance rumors between CEO and janitor turned director. Others sneered, "She just got lucky. Without Hang Tech, she'd still be mopping floors." Those words didn't make her angry, but they revealed a truth. The public didn't want facts. They wanted fiction that felt true. And in that fiction, her real self began to fade. Inside Reeves Enterprises, admiration started to mix with envy. Former allies of Willis whispered in corners, "She's just Reeves's PR puppet." A maid in the boardroom, what a joke. Lucia heard it all but said nothing. Instead, she threw herself into work, launching Project Hidden Talents, a program to promote low-level employees based on skill, not status. Within 2 months, 14 workers had been promoted. A maintenance engineer became a lead technician. A cafeteria cook moved up to operations manager. Small steps, but enough to rattle the old hierarchy. Reeves watched, arms folded. "You're changing the company's DNA, Vega," he said. Lucia replied, "Not changing, evolving." Then came the strike from the shadows. An anonymous email hit every company inbox. Subject line, Night Owls Lie. It accused Lucia of data theft and unauthorized foreign correspondence, attaching a spliced audio clip of her supposedly admitting to hacking the system. The board called an emergency meeting. Reeves summoned her. The room was dim, lit only by the projector's blue glow. Reeves slammed the papers down. "Explain this!" Lucia skimmed them, then said evenly, "It's fabricated. Prove it." "I will. The audio's cut. I never said that." Reeves leaned forward. "I don't want a scandal, Vega. If there's any truth you haven't told me, now's the time. I can protect you. But only if I know everything." Lucia met his gaze. "Do you really think I did all this to hurt the company?" Reeves's tone dropped. "I think you're smart. And smart people sometimes use morality as leverage." The air froze. Lucia answered quietly, "If power means the ability to fix what's wrong, then yes, I'm using it." Reeves stared for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Fine. Prove your innocence before the press gets wind of this." When the door closed behind her, Lucia realized fame doesn't just illuminate success, it also exposes every flaw. That night, she called Zhang in Shanghai. "Someone's trying to discredit me. I need proof the contract file wasn't leaked." "I know," Zhang replied. "We traced access logs. The audio came from a server in New York." Lucia froze. New York, where Willis had been teaching after his dismissal. "He might still have old credentials," Zhang said. "You need to act fast." Lucia searched the internal archives. There it was, an unauthorized IP login to Hang Contract Backup Zip 3 days prior. She printed the evidence and marched into Reeves's office the next morning. "Here, access logs. It's Willis. He's behind the leak." Reeves skimmed the data, then exhaled a dark laugh. "The man doesn't quit. But you forget. Justice isn't enough. People believe what they see." He turned his monitor. A breaking headline blared. "Whistleblower Vega under investigation for corporate breach." Lucia stared at the screen, calm. "Then I'll show them the truth, in their own light." She left the room, USB in hand. That afternoon, Lucia appeared live on CNBC. The interview was broadcast worldwide. The host leaned forward. "Ms. Vega, rumors claim you hacked company files and manipulated the contract. Do you deny it?" Lucia faced the camera directly. "No, I don't deny accessing the data, because it was the data of justice. But I deny manipulating anything. I simply translated what others tried to hide. And if telling the truth is a crime, then I accept the charge." The studio fell silent, then the host smiled faintly. "That might be the most honest answer we've ever heard." By dawn, HangTech released an official statement. "Lucia Vega is the sole verified translator of record. All defamatory claims are false." Public opinion flipped overnight. The same outlets that once doubted her now called her the woman who faced the storm with truth. Meanwhile, Willis was exposed for unauthorized access and placed under investigation. Reeves watched the news from his office, shaking his head. "She just turned a scandal into a triumph," he murmured. Lucia, in her office, simply smiled. She knew this wasn't victory. It was a warning. Light doesn't just glorify, it exposes. She picked up the jade pen and wrote her final note of the day. Truth doesn't need protection, it just needs to be spoken. Outside, sunlight flared across the tower's glass, reflecting the image of a woman who was once invisible, now standing unafraid in her own light. 3 months after the media storm, Lucia Vega was no longer just a symbol. She had become a global force in the tech industry. Her name appeared on Forbes' Top 100 Global Leaders Under 30. Universities invited her to speak about linguistic ethics in the age of data. But the world she was stepping into was nothing like the transparent glass of Reeves Enterprises. It was a labyrinth of power, where every word, every symbol was worth billions. Davos, the language of power. In January, Lucia received an invitation to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Alongside figures like Elon Musk, Christine Lagarde, and Hang Tech CEO Lin Hang, she was introduced as the woman redefining the intersection of technology, language, and justice. Snow blanketed the mountains. Inside the glowing conference center, Lucia walked into a hall filled with world leaders, billionaires, and journalists. The moderator spoke. Today, we discuss trust and artificial intelligence. One truth remains. Whoever controls language controls the future. And Lucia Vega understands this better than anyone. Lucia rose to speak. Her voice was steady, echoing through the hall. Language isn't just communication. It's soft power, the invisible architecture of civilization. In the age of AI, one mistranslated word can ignite a trade war. One misaligned algorithm can value profit over human lives. The room fell silent. Some nodded. But from the back row, a man in a dark suit and glasses watched her intently. Richard Moen, U.S. government tech advisor. His eyes were sharp, calculating. After the session, Moen approached her. "Impressive speech, Miss Vega," he said smoothly. "But tell me, do you think every truth should be spoken?" Lucia replied, "If the truth hurts the powerful, it's probably the one worth saying." Moen smiled thinly. "You've just stepped onto a chessboard where truth-tellers are usually the first pawns to fall." A warning in the dark. That night at the Davos Palace Hotel, Lucia received an anonymous email. "Stop digging into Hangtech's archives. You don't know what you're touching." She frowned. She hadn't been digging, not yet. But that single line was enough to awaken her instincts. The next morning, during a closed-door session with Hang Tech and Reeves Enterprises, Lucia noticed something odd. A new section in the updated partnership draft. Section 27, Project Phoenix. It hadn't existed in any previous contract she'd translated. Lucia asked Lin Hang, "What is Project Phoenix?" He hesitated. "A bilingual data initiative, nothing major." But his eyes said otherwise. After the meeting, Lucia discreetly copied the file onto a secure USB. That night in her hotel room, she opened it. The header read, "Phoenix Initiative, AI Language Surveillance Framework." Her pulse quickened. The document described an AI system capable of monitoring global multilingual communication, collecting conversations, analyzing behavior, and predicting social trends. If built, it would mean every email, message, and translation worldwide could be traced, controlled by a handful of corporations and governments. Lucia's hands trembled. This was no longer about fairness. This was about global control, a conversation in the shadows. She immediately called Zhang in Shanghai. "Do you know anything about Project Phoenix?" Zhang sighed. "It's not commercial. It's run by a coalition. Reeves, Hang Tech, and the U.S. National Security Agency." Lucia's voice tightened. "They want to control language itself?" "Not just language," Zhang said quietly. "They want to control the people who speak it." Lucia stared at the screen, pale under the lamplight. A single thought struck her. She had to expose it. But this time, it wouldn't just be one company she was up against. It would be an international intelligence network. She wrote in her journal, "Truth has a price, and sometimes that price is freedom." The visitor from the dark. 3 days later, a tall woman in a long coat appeared at Lucia's hotel. "Natalie Quinn, Reuters Investigations," she introduced herself. "We know you have documents on Project Phoenix. If you go public, I'll make sure the world hears it." Lucia stared at her. "If I do this, they'll destroy me." "Or you'll destroy them first," Natalie said. "It's your choice." Lucia turned toward the window. Snow fell heavy over Davos. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Truth doesn't change the world, but it lets you choose which side of history you stand on." She gripped the jade pen. "Send me the encryption keys. I'll do it." Natalie's eyes hardened. "Welcome to the real war, Miss Vega." That night, Lucia sat alone in her room, preparing to send the Phoenix file to Reuters. Before pressing send, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad. Once again, I'm using language as a weapon." The screen's light reflected in her eyes, not the eyes of a maid or a victim, but of a woman ready to face the world's most powerful systems. Outside, the snow kept falling, but the wind had changed. The global power game had begun. The news exploded the next morning. Reuters, BBC, and The Guardian all ran the same headline. "Phoenix Project Leak, Global Language Surveillance System Exposed." The world was stunned. Governments demanded investigations. The United Nations held an emergency session on AI ethics and human rights. Across social media, the hashtag #PhoenixFiles spread like wildfire. Millions asked, if our words are being watched, what freedom remains? And in the center of it all stood one name, Lucia Vega, the global storm. In New York, Reuters headquarters was swarmed by press and agents. In Switzerland, Lucia's hotel was surrounded by reporters. "Miss Vega, do you admit leaking classified data?" one shouted through the snow. Lucia looked into the cameras, voice calm. "I didn't leak secrets, I revealed the truth. Secrets protect power. Truth protects people." That quote went viral. It became the line of the decade. But it also made her the most hunted woman in the world. The hunt begins. Within hours, Lucia's bank accounts were frozen. Her passport flagged. All contact with Hang Tech and Jiang was cut off. She was being hunted, not by Reeves alone, but by the governments behind Project Phoenix. In a small Zurich apartment, Lucia sat with only a laptop, a burner phone, and the jade pen. She opened a new file and typed, "They can shut my accounts, but not my voice. I'll write until they have nothing left to hide." She uploaded an anonymous manifesto, a detailed breakdown of Phoenix, explaining how AI was learning from human language to manipulate human thought. It spread globally within hours. Some called it the Vega Manifesto. A European Parliament member declared, "She's not a traitor, she's a witness of our age." But to others, she was now the most dangerous woman alive. The return of the enemy. One night, Lucia heard a knock. Two men entered, followed by Richard Moen. "Miss Vega," he said coldly, "you just pushed 3 governments to the brink of cyber war." Lucia replied, "I didn't push them. Their lies did." "You think the world's ready for the truth?" Moen asked. "No," Lucia said softly, "but it deserves to hear it." Moen approached, lowering his voice. "Reeves and Hang are both under investigation. They're blaming you. If you cooperate, I can make you disappear safely." Lucia smiled faintly. "Safety isn't what I'm after." Moen studied her. "Then remember this. In the language game, truth-tellers are always silenced first." He dropped a folder on the table and left. Inside, photos of surveillance teams tracking her, and a handwritten note. "Run, they'll come at dawn." The final message. Lucia packed her bag, slipping in the USB and jade pen. She left before sunrise, walking through the snow toward the Austrian border. At a small riverside cafe, she uploaded one final file, the Phoenix Addendum. It contained names of corporations, officials, and AI networks secretly harvesting global language data. Moments later, her connection cut off. The last words on her screen read, "Upload complete. File distributed to 3,217 global nodes." She smiled faintly. She knew she might disappear, but truth would not. On a napkin, she wrote with her jade pen, "I belong to no side. I belong to language, and language remembers." Then she stepped into the snow and vanished. Echoes. 3 days later, the Phoenix Addendum went public. Governments held emergency hearings. Executives were arrested. The Phoenix Project was dismantled. Lucia Vega became a legend of the data age, the woman who fought a system with words. No one knew where she went. But sometimes, buried deep in anonymous online translations, one signature appeared again and again. Night Owl.